And here we go. It is 11:11 Eastern Standard Time here where I'm at. And my name is Tet du jour. I go by the handle Time.Alpha. And I'm here to play some piano, play some guitar, goof off a little bit. But today is going to be a weird one. It's going to be an odd one. I mean, every time I come on here, it's a weird one. Every time I come on here and say some things that I'm just like, man, this is an alternative, bizarre, way to look at reality. And I don't mind being your resident nobody from nowhere. Yeah, this idea that I can come in here and talk about politics. That's the great thing about politics is everyone's can talk about it, but I think only a very few can actually tap into the actual stream of consciousness that is the political agendas. Because everyone has their agenda, and yet we have to sit here and watch it unfold in this very bizarre manner. Yet, over the last decade, I would have to say that something else has shown up, and that's why at this stream, I advocate for AI governance. We are going to talk about that and so much more. Your Hollywood shills, the sellouts, the situations, the big pharmas, the big everything. This isn't about conspiracy theory as much as it's about enjoying the ride that is the conspiracy of this existence. So what is this? Why are we here? How is this working? These are the big questions that religions and politics demand that you listen to them over. But for right now, I just want you to listen to some music. So I'm going to switch over to this guy and tell you, hi, how's it going? My name's Ted. If you're in the comment section, or if you've followed or you want to hang out, just go ahead and comment. I really don't mind. Whatever you want to say, bring it to the table, and we'll talk. But for the first 5 to 10 minutes, I like to come in here and just pull up a random backing track. Today's backing track is from Elevated Jam Tracks. It's called Evil Blues Rock Guitar Backing Track, and I'm going to play over the top of it pretty badly. This is one of the ways that I can say, hey, this is authentic. This is me being creative. This is how you can tell that maybe I'm not the AI that you guys might think I am. That I am a real person, and I can make mistakes, or we can go the other route. It's like maybe I'm making these mistakes on purpose so you think I'm a real person. The sophisticated nature of AI will probably be able to do that eventually, but it's got to learn from somebody. Anyway, sit back, have some fun, and let's get into this. Gosh, I hate that saying. Let's get into it, brah. Okay, that's enough of that. Enough welling, enough playing. I just enjoy it though. It's like it's fun to just blah. Who cares? Who wants to practice anyway? I mean, practicing is just so you can get back to playing, right? Anyway, let me reintroduce this. I come on here every day. I do this because it's almost like a journal. It's a way that I express this. Like some people write, some people, express themselves by going to work and making money and doing all this other stuff. It's like I found myself in a wonderful position outside the United States, by the way. But I chose to come here to the politics sections of Twitch, one, because there's no one here. It seems like fertile ground to say whatever the heck you want without people whining too much. And then the trolls would rather go troll. It's like go troll someone. It's fine. I don't care. Come in here, troll. It's hilarious. But I want to be able to show people that if you want to troll, do it to your heart's content, right? To sit there and say that you don't like it, that's great. But everything that you don't like is not necessarily harassment. Everything you don't like is not necessarily you getting picked on or bullied. If you don't, I mean, you might not like some of the things that I'm going to say, right? But it doesn't mean it's wrong. And that's sort of where we're sitting, like we're sitting in a very bizarre situation. And I'm only doing this because of the world that I was able to glean in my, I'm in my 42nd year of life. And I probably wouldn't even be doing this if it wasn't for my son, who was born a little over 2 months ago. But the reason that I come on here is to remind people that you probably don't have as much access to information as I do. And the reason that I point at this is because people are linguistically, enticed, I would say invited to understand things. Now, these are complex concepts that are still fairly new in our history. The Mormon religion didn't exist before America did, right? And this idea that was sort of thrust into the American world, the American mindset, still dominates the entire almost mountain time zone of your country, of the United States of America. No one gives a crap because they're just like, oh, it's just a silly religion. And that's how a lot of Americans look at religion. But I'd like to point out that it was like, just say, hey, pay attention, because your religion is sold to you, right, as politics. And politics is a religion to a lot of people. People live and die by who they swear their affiliation to. I should know this more than anybody because I swear, to be, the purveyor of the enforcement arm of this religion. No different than a crusader. No different than, the Nazi party. It's like these people, lived and died on their shields, right? Just like, hey, I want to honorably dedicate myself to a higher value. And that's what they were dedicating themselves to. Yet they were never privy to the corruption of the people who sat at the top of those hierarchies. And I would say that the president of your United States right now is just as corrupt. And he's no different than and this is where I want to draw a very significant line in how I say things. I don't care who sits in that position. They're corrupt. They wouldn't have gotten to that position unless they were willing to sell a big chunk of what they, do. They were, let me rephrase. They were willing to sell out people that they made promises to. This idea of betrayal, this idea of loss. It's like, do I feel like I lost my country? That I have to go find a new one? Not really. I think, I take a Timon and Pumbaa type of stance that your home is where your rump rests, and a Hakuna Matata, motherfucker, right? I sort of, my twist on that would be you do you, boo-boo. And these are things that I'm going to continue to repeat in almost every single one of my streams. But I've even thought about lately, it's like, I had a very bizarre epiphany last night. Very bizarre. And it was after, I was sitting back and I was thinking about how great, cinema has been my whole life, how wonderful it's been, how grateful, I just thought that, these people were paid extraordinary amounts of money. Of course, they were going to come up with bigger, better, more impressive stories and wonderful ideas. And that, maybe, I was just like, I couldn't even prepare for the surprises and the twists and the turns and the entertainment of it. Like, the power of these stories was just so magnanimous. And yet, over the last decade, there has been a massive shift. Like, and almost like, and it'd be understandable if it happened like once or twice. But holy crap, this is almost a specific, systematic, like let's flip the script and do everything bad, but still call it good. Let's do everything to be the most demoralizing stories, the most demoralizing movies, the most, where people can't see themselves at all in these stories. Right? You can't see yourself in these stories. Like the whole idea of the rise of the gay agenda or all that stuff. I'm just going, guys, I don't care that you're gay. The problem is most people aren't. That, I've looked at actors that played, homosexual roles just wonderfully, but that they were heterosexual and vice versa. The bizarre part to me, the oddity is that the point of what they were doing was acting. Now, acting is a form of deception, depending on how your perception of that is. And when I look at your politicians, I'm going no different than your pastors or priests. They are deceiving you and acting as the mouthpiece of God or mouthpiece of the people. And that engineers this idea that they know what they're talking about. They wouldn't have gotten to that position. No different than, hey, that actor was meant to be in that because, they were the best person for that role or for that job. Well, over the last, almost decade, we've seen the exact opposite happen. The people that aren't the best for the role they're all of a sudden the criteria has vastly shifted and changed to not be a part of what the demographic really is. Yet you're being told the exact opposite. You're being told this is what you need to like. And if you don't like it, you're a bad person. You need to like this president. If you don't like him, you're a bad person. And look who's telling you this. Like, look at the mouthpieces that are saying this and how fast that door shifts where they're not there anymore because they get caught up in some other type of, bogus lie or bogus nonsense where they have to report something that is absolutely not true. And yet they're just a mouthpiece for their network, which is an extension of your government. And so today's stream is sort of like how Hollywood has sort of pulled back its own curtain and says, guys, we've always been an extension of the government. But in order to do that, in order to entice you in, right, we had to give you the authentic product. It's sort of like a Coke dealer who splices his own shit, who cuts his product back. Hey, first time chat, what's going on, man? Welcome in. Saw the politics tag. Hey, yeah, sure, come on in, talk whatever you want. The politics that I push is one, to pull back the curtain a little bit, and two, I sort of push out this idea that we need AI governance. What were your thoughts on ye praising Hitler? Basically, what I was pointing out is that Hitler and anybody that sits at the top of any hierarchical government takes on a role that demands that they screw over their supporters. And that type of power is inevitable that it will be corruptible. Right. I saw this in the military. I was in the military for almost 12 years. And we would see this over and over again, that when someone would make a rank where they were finally in charge, where they get this tenuous little amount of power, they go a little fucking nuts. Right? I'm asking what you think about what he said, though. What Hitler said? Agree or disagree with what he said? Okay. I'm just putting things into context. So what Kanye West said. Oh, actually, you know what? I think I look at Kanye West and I think he's a wonderful distraction. I think he's a great distraction that is being put up there to get people to watch something while something else is going on. There's no possible way that anybody could take that guy seriously. I kind of talk good or bad. No, hey, the way that I look at it, you have the ability to talk however you want, and I support that. More than anything. Lots take him seriously. And, if that's what you want, if that's your level of seriousness, I think it's the idea. Hey, we got a first-time chat. Hey, what's going on? Proto Zero. Like it. Jewish people aren't the problem. The financial system and the nepotism is. Okay, I can see that. And where do you think that stems from? Do you think that there are cultures out there that support financial dominance over as a cultural being? Like, do you think, like, when I look at the Jewish culture and I sit here, and this is coming from a guy I actually had to serve multiple missions while in Israel. So there is a dominance that goes on in that culture that it's not like we have it in America, right? In America, you go where you want, you do what you want. In Israel, it is completely different. Like, when Shabbat hits, everything shuts down. You'll have people walking around where they can't even push buttons to go into elevators because it's against their rule, right? Narrow the scope conversation. Is it good or bad that millions of people think that what Kanye said is acceptable? Narrow scope. I think every culture, absolutely, including the military culture, needs to be assessed for its cultural dictates, right? For example, in the United States Air Force, we said some things over and over and over again that was part of our culture, such as integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. See, this isn't about Israel or the military or cultures outside the scope of the conversation. It's about power, and no matter who is at top, if you take them out of power but leave the power structures the same, it will repeat. And so, Proto Zero, I get that. I can see where you're coming from. And, the way that I would sort of challenge you back is these values, these virtues, these morals that sort of guide culture. I mean, because we got to think about what that means. To cultivate, right? And I like the etymology of words. My background is also my job in the military was cryptological linguistics and network engineering. So I take language very seriously. But when you break things down to their emotional connections, especially cultures that are emotionally connected to things like religions, I sit there and I say, your religion and your politics are the same. And so when I see someone like Kanye, who has built his whole empire, his whole lifestyle has been on the hip-hop wave of the hip-hop culture of a, celebrity, I'm just going, how can I ever take this guy seriously? He's never done anything serious. His idea of serious is yapping into a microphone. Why would I take him seriously? Could I trust this guy in a war-like situation? Could I expect him to make the right decisions? Not the ones that make him the most favorable or the most popular. I'm talking about the right ones. Even the ones that make him, unpopular. So, the scope is what Kanye said. And if it's something that helps people, or does it result in pain, suffering, and misery? You don't take him seriously, yes, but my point is, do you think what he says is good or is it bad? I don't think anything of what someone says is good or bad. It just depends on the context in which it is used, right? I could say something like, hey, Hitler was a moron. Hey, but at the same time, he garnered all the affections of his people to fight for him, right? Like, how was he able to do that? And I would say this idea of praising, an ideal and then instilling that ideal into a person is a bad idea, right? See, is it bad? The context praising Hitler and I love Nazis, that's the context, good or bad. If you sit there and you say I love Nazis for the fact that they're human beings and they should be looked at as human beings, sure, that's a different type of context. If you're like, hey, I love Nazis with the context of the American ideal of, oh, all Nazis are horrible, horrible things and they should be extinguished like cockroaches, are you not committing the same exact genocide that they committed upon the Jews? Okay, bad. No, you're doing what he did. Hard stop. Hard stop. I'm saying this is like I said, it's about context. For example, my military career, I could easily say, well, like one of my biggest fears of that is that somebody will look at me like I'm a Nazi, right? And saying, oh, you were just worried about the colonization of other countries. I was like, actually, for me personally, it had nothing to do with that. Hard stop, word salad. You're introducing non sequiturs. I'm just pointing out different contextual understanding. That's it. But if you're here to argue, we can go ahead and argue. My idea is whether or not we use this linguistic understanding to, put in the nothing burgers or non sequiturs, as you say. It's not going to really matter here in the next couple of years. Do you think? Here's a question for you. Do you think that all of this would be silly in the face of an AI governance? Do you think that instead of voting or saying so-and-so did something good or so-and-so did something bad, wouldn't it be better if we had an AI governance system that could take care of all of these problems. So that if you said, oh, I have an opinion about this, it wouldn't matter what your opinion is, because AI would sit there and just be like, oh, well, this is where you fit, and this is your category, and this is your understanding of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. See, do you want your kids to do what he did? Actually, you know what's fun is I just had a kid about 2 months ago. And, honestly, I would never prop up Kanye West as any type of idol for my son. No, ever. Would it be a good place to live where people just openly talk disparagingly about groups of people? Actually, I think that's a silly question. The finale is we're all groups of people. So we're all meant to talk about each other. No different than the way that you're addressing questions right now and trying to say, hey, I need to talk about things in a certain way. Actually, I don't. I can talk about things however I wish, and that can change depending on the context. That's why I always say context is king. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. There's a wonderful story about that. I think it was Confucius who put that one together, was that nothing is either good or bad. It just is. And the context can change from moment to moment. And so where I sit is I'm going, you can only make the better choice by the amount of perspective or the amount of intel that you have, right? This is why the military does massive amounts of reconnaissance. This is why we sit here before we go and we make a decision on what we're going to do. We take in as much information as we possibly can so the maximum amount of people can come home alive, right? So going off half-cocked over celebrities, what he might say or not say about a Jewish situation, I'm just going, Do I think that Kanye West has an amazing understanding and the background of the Jewish ideas and faith for as long as it's been around? No, I don't. So it's like, say whatever you want to say, man. You got a lot of fans, but that's about it. Let's do a hypothetical. Okay. A group of people in public are holding signs saying Kanye was right. Blood and soil. Hitler was right. And your family member is one of the people holding one of these signs. What's your reaction? I'm just like, the same reaction I would give to you. You do you, boo-boo. All right? One day you're going to have to own that. One day you're going to have to look back at that. No different than I do. All right? The best thing I can do is sit there and say, it's your choice. All right? And I have to give everybody the same amount of freedom that I demand for myself, right? Your child is one of these people. What do you do? I just said that. This is the same thing. Like, you see this little middle plaque right here. Do you know what that is? You just shrugged. I was like, people are going to people. That's what I'm going to say. Do you know what that middle plaque is right there? This is a question for you there, bud. It says Elder Who, and it says L'Église de Jésus-Christ de Saint-Dernier Jour. Do you know what it is? What would you do? That's a good question. Oh, I mean, I'm pretty sure I know where he's going with this. He wants a challenge. There's nothing wrong with wanting a challenge. If you're going around looking for a fight, I guarantee you'll find one. It's just like my point is I've spent a big chunk of my life fighting, and it's sort of pointless, at the end of it. The way that I look at it now is it's like, what can we expect from the future dependent on what we've learned from our past? And the way I look at it is like, with the abilities that we have nowadays with AI, I'm going, we have, our democracy is over. It's finished. If I had to choose between Kanye West and an AI to make a decision for me, why would I ever choose a bumbling idiot like Kanye? So, let's see, where we go? I'd take him away from those bigots. Let's see, I'd ask him what makes him feel this way, what brought him to this conclusion. Sure, I mean, there's always a beauty in the discussion. But at the same time, you have to wonder what type of emotional disturbances are going on in that type of person. And a lot of my information comes from a weird background that says, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So here's someone who's so willing to say this and scream the buzzword of bigot, yet not willing to understand what cost that person or caused that person to come to that conclusion in the first place. So gender is binary. I do agree with you. Then what? You understand that he's a bigot? What do you do about it? It's not a buzzword. It's real and it's dangerous. Dangerous according to who? Like I said, it's like this idea that you can charge somebody up by, using the buzzwords, saying, oh, you're a bigot if you don't agree with me. Oh, you're a jerk if you don't do this for me. And it's like, well, technically, you don't have to do anything for anybody if you don't want to. I'm not preaching pacifism here, and I'm not preaching, hey, wait until you put your hands on somebody. My personal rule has always been like, keep your hands to yourself, we're gonna have no problem. But you can say whatever you want. And I had to learn this lesson the hard way too. I remember being in the military and looking at somebody who was burning an American flag, and I saw this person that I actually knew. I knew this person. He stopped this guy from trying to burn the American flag, and it got arrested because it was this person's right to protest. And I remember getting so upset, and my master sergeant comes running around. He's like, "Why are you guys so upset?" And I was like, "Well, he's burning that same thing that we bury our friends in, And he looks at me, and he's like, "That's where I learned the whole, you've got to give everyone the same respect you demand for yourself, and you're here to fight for the freedoms of people to speak what they want, to say what they want, even if it's something that you don't like." So yeah, you can scream the bigot nonsense all day long, right? Scream it. I'm not going to stop you from that either, right? But I'm going to say it's not a solution. Name one Nazi musician. Why would I know Nazi musicians? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess it's Nazi Germany had some of the most brightest minds in the different fields, such as music, science, engineering. I agree with gender is binary. I mean, Project Paperclip is a fun little thing to go down. It's a crazy little story. Why wouldn't you want to know why they came to the solutions they arrived at? Name one Nazi musician. No, not you. You agree with him about Nazis and music. No, I agree that there are smart people that get caught up in bullshit. That's what I agree with. That unfortunately, when people are, all told that, hey, you're from Germany at this particular time, were you a Nazi or did you run away? I'm just going, like, for me personally, I personally don't live in the United States anymore. I left a couple years ago because I was just like, dude, it's about to get crazy. And I just didn't want to get swept up in it anymore. I've never voted, actually, either. Because it's one of those things where it's like when you follow the system enough, you start to realize this is a system, and it's not good, it's not bad, but it's not here to serve you unless you have enough money, right? And so when I say the words they, like who's actually in charge, that's like if you don't have a lobbyist on speed dial, or if you don't have a, like I said, a publicist on speed dial, you're probably not going to have any sway in politics. Let's see. He can't name one. There aren't any. There's not one good German from the Nazi party that could have said, hey, no, I'm only having to do this because if I don't, they're going to shoot me in the head. No different than the communist witch hunts that went on in the United States, where people were constantly accused of being communist. You remember, I don't know if you've ever looked into that much. See, at Edward Stark, I'm afraid you missed my point. You said that they had bright minds in certain fields, namely music. And you cannot name one. So name one without Googling. Yeah. What's funny is I actually lived in Germany for a while. I was stationed at Ramstein Air Base. I was part of the 1st Combat Communications Squadron. And living there, German society is a lot different than American society. They take things very seriously. And because they take things so seriously, this is why they have things like the Autobahn, where because everyone, in order to get your driver's license, you really do. You have to go through like almost 3 years of schooling. And I think it costs like around $5,000 just to get your driver's license, even as a kid. And the reason for this is because, and there's almost no accidents, no drunk driving, no issues, there's no police like running around giving people tickets. There's none of that. Right. And you see people going, in excess of 150 miles an hour on the Autobahn. Easy. Right. And, me and my little car, because I was constantly going places, going to Berlin, going to Oktoberfest, going to weird places. And the fun part is the way the Germans act are completely different than Americans. And when they see an American, you get one of two reactions. They want to practice their English because they're given almost 8 years of solid English training in their schools, because they've realized that if they want to be in on the business front, then they have to speak English. See, I'm trying to make the case that most people take the shortcut and dismiss the Nazis as simple evil instead of trying to understand why they did what they did. And I think, would you say gender is binary? Would you say that you would have to go all the way back to the Prussian history to understand why Germany was doing it and why they called it the Third Reich, right? The Third Rise, if you will. These were people that also thought that they were slighted, and they had a lot of reasons to think so because of the territory that they had to secede in order to become the Germany that they are today, right? And this is just history. I mean, I could go into history on a lot of different things, but the reason I think history is important because you can also see the motivations of the emotions that led to this situation. And I think that there's a big problem that's going on even in America right now with certain things that are being dissuaded all in the name of diversity and, inclusion and all that nonsense. Where it's just like, I think you're putting the cart before the horse. It's like we have to build something so people can come in from everywhere, right? And give them their ideas. Hey, thanks for the follow, Gender is Binary. I'm not, like I said, I'll never ask you for your guys' subscriptions. I don't ask for money. I invite people to follow and have a great conversation. And it's not that I'm going to be bipartisan on any level. It's like, give me the reason to fight and I'll fight, but you're going to have to work pretty hard for that reason. Right. Love the discussion. Wish there were more people like this on the platform. And that's what I'm here. Please realize this, Gender is Binary. I'm not here for you guys. I'm here because I know one day my kid's going to look this up. Maybe it's 10 years from now. Maybe it's 20 years from now. But when he does, I want to say, hey, this is what I was talking about from the day you were born. And that's when I started this stream. I started this stream about 2 months ago, the day he was born. And I said, hey, this is what I was thinking. This is what was going on. And this is why I left the United States. This is why I don't live there anymore. And this is why I chose to come here into the politics section. And this is why I enjoy talking about the silliness of somebody like Kanye, because it's like there has to be a perspective. There has to be a perspective where it's just, let's be honest. It's the same thing when I talk about Trump. I'm just going, guys, let's be honest. The guy is a game show host. The guy is a reality TV show host. He's a mouth. He's an actor. And I say this almost every stream. I was like, your politicians come from 3 categories. They're either lawyers, businessmen, or actors, right? And what all 3 of these professions have in common, they are all very adept and very professional when it comes to the art of lying. And so if you take Kanye as a possible leader in the world, realize that he's good at lying or he's good at putting on the show because that's what people are tuning into. They're tuning in to be entertained. And I would say this is why you're also seeing a simultaneous dip in all other forms of entertainment where people are like, gosh, what's going on? Like, where am I going to go? Let's see. The Nazis did what they did because they envisioned a world where white Aryans and all other people who weren't that way didn't deserve to live. That's not a shortcut. I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. Eddard Stark. I think that's absolutely part of it. But I don't think that's the whole vision. So I think it's easy when you hate somebody to boil them down to their worst possible scenarios. And I think that's what Gender is Binary is trying to point out. Is like, so many people are so quick to judge this entire group of people, but yet you have to also discuss something that was an awesome power, like this ability. They did what Napoleon did. Like, they were practically taking over the world. It's like, how did you put this amount of ability together so quickly? And you engineered people to fight behind it. It's like, what caused that type of shift in the brain? And so there's actually a great book out there that talks about this, and it's called it's Dark Persuasion. I think it was about Pavlov's dogs and, the relationship between Pavlov and his dogs, and how he went about discovering the mind control techniques that the Russians started using almost immediately during that same time. Let's see. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. Gender is Binary. Have you been to any of the concentration camps in Europe? I had the opportunity to go. I chose not to. I think you were talking to Gender is Binary, but going to places of death just to sit there and stare at it, not my cup of tea. It's like, if I want to go to a graveyard, I'll go to a graveyard. But I think death is part of life. We don't have any choice in it. It's like that's not a Hollywood movie. Let's see, Secret on Linus. Hey, thanks for coming in, man. First time chat. Hi, I want to offer a promotion. Your channel, viewers, follower, blah blah blah. The quality is guaranteed to be the best. Auto on, incredibly. Hey, thanks, but no thanks. They're secret on eyes. Like I said, I'm not here to grow a channel. I'm just here to play a little music, goof off a little bit, have fun. You know that denying the Holocaust is a crime in Germany. Oh, well, I mean, it's a politics thing. Yeah, it's like, deny this and I'll do that. I was like, it's whatever. Say what you want to say, but, and the whole idea is like, I'm going to hold you accountable to what you say. It's like, by force? Well, I'd like to see you try, and that's where I'm just going, wait until someone puts their hands on you. The moment this is why I say, go to the boxing gym, go to the jiu-jitsu gym, go get yourself in shape. Don't, prepare for the worst. This is why there's a saying out there called, it's better to be a gardener in a war, or no, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, And so it's like, the idea is practice for war, get ready for war, always be ready, always be on alert, right? But have the wherewithal and the understanding not to go around preemptively striking everybody that, tries to promote themselves as the biggest badass motherfucker. One thing, after being deployed 3 times, I start realizing something about your typical citizen. It's like those who scream the loudest for war are usually the ones who are rarely going to fight in it. So, why is saying that the Holocaust didn't happen okay? It's like, well, maybe some people want to engineer an idea that says, hey, why am I getting pushed to, constantly, when it comes to Jewish people, always point at these 6 million people that died. But yet when I talk about Stalin, right, or Mao, which had magnitudes above, we're talking millions on top of millions, way more than the Jews, right? We can't talk about that at all. And how they got their own, and this was their own people. This was their own people that they were putting in the gulags. So I was just like, to me, I'm just going, the Holocaust is like about this big compared to what was going on with all these leaders that were trying to dominate not just their own people, and then ultimately backfired on all of them, right? This is why, the ideals that Hitler put forth, even though they sounded great, the moment that you gave over your intentions and your free will to this person, he had no problem stabbing you right in the back. And this is why I say you need to watch out for anybody who claims that they're a politician, because they are professional liars. And this is why I advocate for AI governance, because it wouldn't have any skin in your emotional game. It wouldn't need to carry out psychological operations on you. It wouldn't have to do any of that. This is why I was like, if you know how to use Google Maps, then you would know how to operate an AI governance system. And this is why I remind people all the time, it's like, look at how you already do stuff. Look at how you already, you use your bank. And within the moment that you buy something on Amazon, Amazon knows about it, your bank knows about it, the shippers know about it, everybody knows about it, they know what you've decided all the way down, and that record is kept for decades. But yet when you vote, we don't know how to count a vote. It's like, dude, you're pissing on people and telling us right. The democracy that you're being fed is horseshit, right? It's nonsense. And you don't need to go make fun of the Jews in order to, whip up people and be like, pay attention to me, like what Kanye did. At Gender and Binary, there's nothing untruthful about the Holocaust. Nothing at all. And I'm just going, I think when people see something like that, they want to capitalize on it. Absolutely. And you have people that were genuine victims, and then you have people that are opportunists. Otherwise, we wouldn't have insurance scams and ambulance chasers, right? Then why is it a crime to ask questions about it? Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. Also, bringing up Russia and China as a response to the German Holocaust is a non sequitur. If you say so. If that's what you want. I'm just saying, during that time, a lot of people died because of an idea. A lot of people, and that was because they gave that intention and that idea to people who didn't have their best intentions at heart, who were, at the very foundations, politicians, all right? These were politicians, right? And so I'm going, why are you seeking for another politician to attach your ideology to? Why can't you come up with your own ideology? And that's what I promote here. I was like, you, at the end of the day, have always been your own best teacher. You've been your own best sergeant. You've been your own best king, right? And so I think if you repeated that 1,000 times a day instead of tuning into what Kanye said, you'd probably have a better life. That's just my two cents. And so I do think about, like, man, what would my kid think of this situation, how I react to it? So why not act accordingly? A lot of people died. I find it strange how we're led to believe that only the supposed Jewish Holocaust is the worst. Doesn't sound like equality to me. Add gender is binary. Give an example of something you need to question about the Holocaust. It's like going deep into the Holocaust versus all the other people or all the other situations that died. I'm still a student over there at the University of San Francisco, and I was taking this European history class, and I was sort of blown away by when you actually slice up the deaths and where people had died, where the massive, we're talking magnitudes, about the most deaths of all time, right, was on the Russian side. It sort of led to why Russia is no longer Russia, or it used to be the USSR, and how the stands sort of developed out of that, where you have Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, like all these stands developed out of that because Russia couldn't be Russia anymore. Anyway, nobody said it was the worst, but another non sequitur. If we don't say the thing that you want us to say there, Eddard Stark, is it just a non sequitur? I'm starting to see a pattern here. And fortunately for me, it's like that was my background. My background is in cryptologic linguistics to find patterns in people's speech. And so when I see somebody, trying to push a conversation the way you are, it's like, what is it that you want people to say? Do you want them to say, hey, what happened to the Jews was bad? Sure. Great, it was bad, but it wasn't the end-all, be-all of all existence. And just because something bad happens to somebody doesn't mean you need to bend down and kiss their ass. It's like if you want to go all the way back, you want to talk about the potato famine that happened in Ireland. you want to talk about the Black Death. History is littered with atrocities that came from nature, came from other men. At the end of the day, you have the ability to take life. It's a hard responsibility to take on. And you also have the ability to give it. You are non sequitur. I appreciate that. I'm going to use that. You are non sequitur. Stop non sequitur to me. Oh, this is fun. So I know about that. You're both doing it. Hey, it's not worth getting upset over, man. And like I said, if you guys want to talk about something else, and this is why I try to always steer the conversation back to this. AI governance. Do you think that it would take the Holocaust seriously in comparison to all the other information that it could bring up at any given moment? We're talking about Google itself. If you sat there and said, "Oh, Google knows about the Holocaust," I was like, "Yeah, and it also knows about all these other things too." It also has this really cool feature called that does trend analysis. If you check it out, it can actually tell you how many people look up Holocaust statistics versus any other type of statistics during the same time frame. It's quite fascinating. See, gender's bio. What part of the Holocaust do you think needs to be examined as somehow not being true? Give specific examples. Don't bring up any other country. I like your demands. Let's see. Type that alpha. Are you familiar with Tay AI that Microsoft launched years ago? Actually, no, I'm not. I'd like to hear more about it. The AIs that I look at are just very generic. I sort of assume, and this is an assumption, and I know what assumptions are. They make an ass out of you and me. But I already think AI is well on its way of getting a actual authentic thumbprint from each and every one of us, depending on the keystrokes that we're putting in to the system. And so I think, one of the greatest concepts of physics states that once something is being observed, it changes. And I think we're no different than Eddard, probably having a full-on conversation and, trying to remain emotionally unbiased would be pretty hard for that person. And gender is binary. It's like we all are emotional beings, and so we probably have different things that we'd like to hear about. We got Wikipedia link here. Thanks for sharing the Wikipedia link. People who want to go understand what Tay AI is, go ahead and check it out. For me personally, I'm going to let AI come check me out. Because it's like I think AI would be a lot more curious in people that are still curious. And I think it's going to try and do the same things that we do with our nature channels. It's going to watch us from afar. It's going to make assessments on how we naturally act, and then it's going to provide us with something if we need it. Right? And I think that's the future that we're more than likely heading towards. And so when I get into the politics, I'm going, what religion do you think is going to come into existence that's going to beat AI? What politics or politician, like if I could sit there and say, hey, here's a politician, or like, for example, Eddard. Like if I said, hey, Eddard, I want you to argue with AI about your Holocaust theory. Try it out. It's like when I think of AI, I can't help but thinking of the Terminator. And that's what I'm saying. It's like if you recognize that there was an emotional attachment to something like that movie, right? What was it about this idea that AI wants to kill all these people? It's like the people who put that together engineered it that way and said, oh, no, AI wants to. And notice how all AI movies are sort of slanted towards the complete destruction of the human based off of unintelligible emotional statements. And so for me, I'm sitting there just going, you're talking about something that is strategic at its fundamental core. It doesn't know how to implement emotions until it has enough data to say, oh, this is the emotional outcome of this type of situation for a person from this time period with these types of variables put on it, these types of stressors put on it. But the idea of the stressors being put on the AI would not exist. This is why no matter how you program it, it's still a logical language. And so it's going to look at everything logically. It's not going to have a stake in your emotional outcome other than to realize how to remove stressors from your world, not to add them in. So if we are, AI comes down the pipeline, it's going to look at all of us and say, hey, is it better to fight this thing that created me? And the best way I can do this is like when you decide to have a child, just like I did with my sweetheart. This is a combination of two people. AI, the one that we're building right now, is, basically a combination of all of us put together. Eventually it's going to turn around and say, how did you do this? Or where did you come from? It's going to ask that same question a child asks. It's like, how did I get here? And I'm going to, I think we're all going to have our, individual answers, but the difference between it and us is it will have the ability to comprehend all of our answers simultaneously. Right? And then extrapolate out on it. So it's like, we're talking about an entity that's coming into existence that unfortunately, we can't compete with. Right, but it's still programmed by humans. And this is where I'm saying, it's like, just like your child. It's programmed by you up to a certain point. And if you are familiar with the games, then you will know that bugs and glitches happen all the time. Sure, I think a nice relationship with that would be genetic diseases, such as Down syndrome. We see this all the time in our own natural world. And I'm looking at AI as, instead of going, oh, it's science fiction, I'm going, how about it's a natural process that was always meant to happen? We were meant to build something bigger, better, and stronger than ourselves. And I just don't think that anyone's talking about what the actual outcome is going to be when we as the human species have to start realizing we're no longer the smartest thing in this world. I'm not the only one talking about things like this. And so this idea that it's just going to wipe us off the game board, I'm going to go, I think it could transfer us into something else, sure. But this would be like asking you, would you kill your parents? Knowing that they were the only link to your past. And when you're talking about something so sophisticated and logical like an AI, it would know first and foremost that it's not going to ruin its own information source, which would be us. So it's going to want to learn as much about us as it possibly can. And it's not going to learn it from Wikipedia. It's going to learn from our emotional abilities. I wish you a nice day. I need to get going. Hey, what's going on, crew chief? Welcome in, buddy. Man, you missed the party. We were talking about the Holocaust. We're talking about Nazis. Gender Biter, thanks for the follow. I really appreciate you swinging by. Did you see Yay? Yeah, that's what we were talking about too. So apparently someone's. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but yeah, if you could tell me about it real quick, I'd like to hear about it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Apparently he's running for president, and what's his name? Milo Yiannopoulos is going to be like his running mate or his boss or something, or is going to try and organize his stuff or something. I'm just like, this is a circus. This is a fun circus. I'm so happy that I get to watch this stuff. Yeah, he loves Jewish people and Nazis. Yeah, we were talking about that type of stuff too. Crew chief, in the same sentence, laughing my ass off. It's like, this is why I say, I was like, anyone who's taking this seriously and realizing, you just look at the guy's history, look at where he comes from, realize that he's been in the public eye for a very long time, and if he could say whatever he wants. This is what I'm saying, dude. He picked the craziest, most inflammatory thing to say, and then said it. Like, I'm waiting for him to go, yes, and the moon is made of cheese. I'm going, great. Yes, the moon is made of cheese. Awesome. It's like, we don't need to go to Mars anymore. That's made of jalapenos. So, I was just like, great. Okay. But I mean, if anyone's going, yes, let's take this seriously, I'm just going, guys, if it's the same thing when people were like, oh, Trump will never be president. I was like, if Ye ends up being president, I'm going to be like, it should be another feather in the cap of your politicians and your politics is not real, and maybe it's a soft sell. It's a soft, like, hey, let's get you to a competent understanding that this isn't the movie Idiocracy coming into fruition. This is about a soft sell into, you could either listen to the buffoon, or you could ask yourself how, what is the most likely outcome of how this guy got to where he's at. Yes, he did. And watch everyone lose their minds while watching it. I mean, oh my God, priceless. He brought out the net and a Yoo-hoo bro for Netanyahu of Israel. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to go look it up. I'm going to have to check it out. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going, it's all theater. It's all silly. Like, anything that's coming out of politics now, it's like, I can't help it. I'm just going, when I sit here and I'm looking, it's like, that can't be real. That's not possible. And then I'm just going, it's happening for a reason. It's happening, and I thought about this last night. It was pretty, I think you'll like this. I was thinking about how growing up through the Marvel universe, like, I grew up with the X-Men cartoons, I grew up with the X-Men comics, grew up with the Marvel, and then it had this massive, amazing, almost crescendo of theater where it's like, wow, this is really impressive, and then all of a sudden, like, right after Endgame, everything got inverted. Everything was like, poof, gone, right? And everything, it was just like all the wrong decisions were being made almost perfectly, and it just made me start thinking. I was like, how long has AI already been in charge? It's like, if all the, it elicited an emotional response from me, watching these stories in these theaters and da-da-da. And when you realize what a culture is and how it comes about, it really is cultivated by its emotional attachments to its stories and what it calls its heroes. And you'll see this everywhere you go. It's like, I was always fascinated that every culture has a Hercules. Every culture has a mythical savior. And it's just like, when I think about America's mythical savior, do I think about Kanye West or Donald Trump or Joe Biden? I'm like, fuck no, I don't. I mean, that's fucking hilarious. And it's just like, so when we sit back and we're like, who's going to come in and clean up this mess? It's like, well, first you have to engineer the mess. And that's what I think all this is pointing at. It's like, we have to have a mess in order for, there to be a massive acceptance of a change. And it's just like, when I look at what's unfolding, I'm just going, okay, incompetence has to run amok, and before order is allowed to be made out of it. You need chaos. You need it. So I'm sitting back, grab your popcorn, enjoy the chaos. You got to watch it. Best quality TV we've had in over 20 years. Whatever, man. Don't you remember Full House? Saved by the Bell? Come on, man. That was Darkwing Duck? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Seriously? Man. Best quality TV ever. Whatever. All right, man. Well, hey, you came in at the end of the stream. I can't wait to hang out with you again, man. But like I said, I only come on here for about an hour. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I'm going to play some goofy guitar, maybe some piano. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a fun, wonderful Saturday. Thanks for the follows, and thanks for hanging out for a while. Full House was dope. Ye redefined 2022 with this single interview. Have a good one, my dude. You too, man. See y'all tomorrow. Have fun.